Hello, we are going to analyze the text that we have on page 9 of our materials. As for the key, to the reading activities, reading comprehension activities, I have already given you the key, which I have included in the lesson plan. But let's analyze the text a little bit more. If you have watched the video strategies to enhance our English expression moving towards level C, I gave you strategies in which we can succeed in getting a compressive way of expressing ourselves. I mean, using as little wording as possible to express as much as possible. And we gave some strategies such as compounds, we gave metaphors, we gave onomatopoeias, we gave a few strategies that are very useful when it comes to trying to be vocabulary rich. This text is a good example of all that. For example, only the introduction already contains a good example of all those ways in which you can compress your expression. For example, in the title, failure. Failure is a complex word. We have added a suffix which turns the word into a noun. So the good thing about complex words is that we keep the root, which is the part of the word where the lexical meaning lies, and then by adding a suffix, we can adapt that word to different contexts, because we can change the part of speech. We can make it a noun, we can make it an adjective, we can make it a verb, and sometimes it is a matter of adding several suffixes in a row to turn it into several parts of speech in a sequence, let's say, from one part of speech to the other. And sometimes we can turn it into two adjectives, for example, one coming from the main root and one coming from the word which is derived from having added another suffix. Whereas prefixes change the meaning or alter slightly the meaning of the word. And we can get a very rich word out of adding prefixes and suffixes to the root. Failure is a way of turning the verb to fail into a noun. And most of the times the noun is an abstract noun, which is very good to avoid the taboos that I usually tell you about. People, for example, how can I avoid people? Because it's a noun that students usually resort to, and it gives creates the impression of having a very narrow range of vocabulary. So we have to avoid people, which is a general word with no specific meaning. We have to avoid that vague language. Also, within the introduction, we have adverbs, comment adverbs. Those comment adverbs are adding extra information to my expression without having to use too much wording. For example, reassuringly murmur. Reassuringly is not specifying or restricting the meaning of my word murmur. Reassuringly is adding extra meaning, telling you my attitude and my intention when I do the action of murmuring. And at the same time, murmur is a way of speaking, and a very specific way of speaking. So it's not the general word to speak, it's the general word of saying something to you in private, which is not openly expressed and cannot be understood by anyone, as if speaking softly and a little bit unclearly, only for you to understand. We also have idioms, and idioms share this sort of sensory strategy that sometimes English uses. For example, to pat you on the back. This means that I'm not doing it physically, but I am doing it figuratively speaking. And sometimes figurative meanings are even more important than physical meanings. For example, if we move on to more speaking to the first paragraph, we see, for example, one of the idioms that you are supposed to do from the exercise in the back, which is to make strides. To make strides is an idiom which is at the same time a metaphor. And that metaphor comes from the semantic field of walking, moving. I showed you the spidergram of move, and in the spidergram of move, you have the caption in the middle, which is the vague word, move, and then adding a category, which is the adverb of manner that we are trying to avoid. You have another caption stems out, which is ways in which I can express move fast. For example, rushing, for example, racing, sprinting, and one of them was striding. Striding meaning to walk by taking very long steps. This I avoid using vague black and white words by adding nuances of meaning which make my words specific and which will force me to be discriminative when I am going to use the word in a context. So a stride, which is a long step, it can be physically, you can mean walking physically, or you can use it figuratively, meaning to make progress with something. Then we have, for example, to contrast dramatically. Dramatically is an adverb of degree which collocates, collocations are another important point in level C, collocates with words meaning change. And it does not necessarily mean something negative. It does not have to be something negative. Dramatically change, undergo a dramatic change. It means a notorious change. For example, we also have the word encouragement a few lines below. Encouragement, another complex word in which courage, I take the basis, which is the noun courage. I have added a prefix encourage, which means a verb in, the prefix in, meaning giving courage to, empower, giving power to. And then by adding the noun, I have turned it into an abstract word, which is encouragement. We also have something rings true. Something rings, an adjective, the verb ring, in this case, means that something gives you the impression of. It sounds as if, because it's a sound, the ringing of the telephone. It rings true. It means that at first notice or in the first place, it sounds or it looks as if it were true. It gives you the impression of it being true. You cannot corroborate it. You cannot prove it 100%, but it is very likely to be true. And you say ring. It rings a bell. It means that I'm familiar with it, or it sounds as if I was familiar with it. Then in the next line, we have to change tack. What does that mean? It means it comes from the semantic field of sailing, another metaphor, and it means to deliberately change my route, my path, because I think that the solution to my problem might very well be another one from the one I had expected to be in the beginning. Okay, so if we go to the very last paragraph, J Masters, I mean, we have 4 sections. The last section, the one in the right column at the bottom, we see a very interesting thing. We see the use of the prefix over, meaning excessively. Instead of saying For example, people use these phrases a lot, okay? These phrases tend to be overused. I have avoided people, he uses people, I know. I avoid people. I have used a passive voice. I have used the tend to instead of usually, and I have used overused instead of saying use something too much, which is a much plainer way of saying the same thing. Or we say oversimplistic. We do not say simple, we say simplistic, and this suffix means excessively simple, much simpler than it should be. It means that I have made it too vague, too little elaborate. So oversimplistic means that it is very plain, very plain. So I hope that that's in a way, this is helpful for you to understand the text, that we can exploit the text from a linguistic point of view. And I hope you will use it, you will find it useful. If you have any queries or any questions, I will be available. Please reach out to me. Thank you.